Hi everybody, welcome to the session about the African Bird Atlas project. I'm Aaron Shruti from BirdLab South Africa, and I hope that you will enjoy the number of presentations we have lined up for the next 15 minutes to 60 minutes. There will be presentations by Henk Nel from BirdLab, two presentations from the Kenya Bird Atlas project, and then I'm very excited that we had a number of atlases who submitted their own videos to explain why they love atlasing, and it was absolutely fantastic to listen to these videos, and I hope that you will also enjoy it. First of all, the first atlas I want to introduce to you that is going to tell us a little bit about why he's enjoying atlasing. We've got Cameron Kroll. He's still at school, so it's really nice to learn from a really young atlaser why he's enjoying atlasing. He's atlasing a lot in South Africa in the Gauteng region, and have already submitted over 300 protocol cards. So let's listen to Cameron.
Good day all, I hope you've been enjoying the bird fair so far. I'm Cameron Kroll and I'll be answering some questions on atlasing for you. I'm by no means the most qualified person to be telling you about this, but I have at least done over 300 cards in over 100 different pen tabs. So why do I atlas? It boils down to the fact that it's simply birding. And it's with a difference to normal birding too. I've realized that atlasing is the only form of birding where you get to be a scientist, a conservationist, and a lister at the same time. Now, you've probably heard about the first two a lot today, but you probably don't associate listing with atlasing. Now, I believe that listing is a part of atlasing because you're trying to accumulate a list of birds in each card, and you're probably trying to get a new bird for pen tab as well. Fortunately though, if you're not a lister at heart, you don't have to have this as your priority. So why do I enjoy atlasing? I enjoy it most because every bird is appreciated. Sometimes a common bird can be very difficult to find. I know this. I mean, I went out atlasing in the farmlands a while back, and for some reason I could not find a guinea fowl. And after 3 hours of searching and searching and searching, eventually I found it. And the joy that I've had just by finding this guinea fowl, it's unlike ever before. I then had the horrible realization that I just crossed the pen tab boundary, and because I was atlasing, this meant I could not include it on my list. Atlasing takes you to some amazing places, and you discover many places when you go out. I've found some amazing places even in my home province of Gauteng, which is really saying something. There are so many top birding destinations out there that just haven't been discovered, but when one is atlasing, you tend to come across these places. You go out into the relatively unknown, and anything can pop up at any time. What is my favorite sighting or moment while atlasing? I could tell you a story about when I was out atlasing, but you had to be there to truly appreciate it, and only the person that you shared the memory with would ever really understand it. I could also tell you about my favorite sighting, the day I had a sand martin, or the day when there was a never-ending stream of chestnut-backed sparrowlarks. But I appreciate those sightings just as much as I did the guinea fowl in the story I've already told you. This is what makes atlasing so incredible. Every bird is truly equal. So next weekend when you plan to go birding, why don't you consider atlasing?
The next atlaser we're going to listen to is a Capetonian from Cape Town, Garrett Skeet. He's a long-term passionate atlaser. He also serves on our regional atlas committee for the Western Cape. Garrett is a really passionate atlaser, so let's listen why he's so passionate about the Southern African Bird Atlas project.
Hi everyone, my name is Garrett Skeet. I'm one of the committee members for the Regional Atlasing Committee in the Western Cape. So why do I love atlasing? Well, many reasons, but mostly because I just love the challenge of seeing how many species I can find in the pen tab. And I know that submitting a full protocol card requires the maximum number of species to be documented as possible. So I find that it also makes me a very, very diligent and meticulous birder because no species can be left unattended to. You can't just see a raptor flying past and ignore it, or hear an unfamiliar call in the bush and not give it due attention. So I think I really enjoy the fact that it's made me a very attentive, very diligent birder, and it's also certainly helped with my bird calls. And I also really enjoy the habitat exploration. There's nothing more fun than looking at the satellite map and planning where you're going to go, see, oh, here's a bit of a river, here's a bit of a wetland, I might find some wetland birds there, an open field, perhaps if I go there I'll find a crowned lapwing, etc. So I really enjoy that aspect of it as well. But definitely the number game is also fantastic. Setting records, breaking records, challenging other people's records, that's been good fun. And that leads me into the next point, which is one of my most memorable birding moments. I bird in my home pentad is the Cape Town City Bowl pentad, which includes the City Bowl, very urban developed areas, and some of the mountain leading up to the cable car station and Camps Bay. So we get some seabirds, we get some mountain birds, etc. And when I arrived here, the pentad record was 67, and I had to work really hard to break it. And it sounds like a fairly low number, but it's just not a very, very bird diverse pentad, or so we thought, because now we're just discovering more and more about it. My current card is up to 82 species, and I think one of my best moments was finding a pair of roosting African wood owls, which actually roost in the house or in the gardens of the Premier of the Western Cape, right in the middle of town. So yeah, that was fantastic. And during lockdown, I finally managed to see some the local pair of Rose eagles, which roost somewhere down in Hout Bay, and finally get them onto my full protocol card. So that was also a fantastic moment. It's really quite something to be sitting on your balcony in my apartment in the middle of town and looking at Rose eagles. So that's very, very satisfying. And why do I do it? Well, the personal challenge, the numbers game, but also just knowing that it's a fantastic scientific contribution. I'm very passionate about the project. I really enjoy it. I'm really happy to be a part of it. I was honored to be invited to be a member of the Atlasing Committee. So yeah, I think those are my reasons.
Right, so now for our first formal presentation about the Kenyan BirdMap project. And over to Colin Jackson, that will chat to us a little bit about the Kenya BirdMap project.
Hi, my name's Colin Jackson, and I'm the director of Arusha, Kenya. We're one of the lead organizations for the Kenya BirdMap project, together with the National Museums of Kenya and Tropical Biology Association. We've been very excited about the way the BirdMap has progressed, and you will have just heard from Sydney, our manager based in Nairobi, about the progress of the BirdMap since it started in 2013, and it's been really exciting to see how that has grown and developed. But I think one of the other things we are very excited about with the BirdMap project is the way that it's drawn in young Kenyans to bird watching, to get excited about birds and conservation in general, and it's been great to see that community of birders grow and be sharing images and records on WhatsApp groups and Facebook, etc. And it's been great to have here with me Apollo, who's been birding for about 2 years. He's just graduated from the Kenya Wildlife Service Training Institute with a diploma in wildlife management, and while he was there he ran a bird club, and he's been volunteering with us here at Arusha during the COVID-19 lockdown. I just thought I'd ask him, Apollo, what is it about the BirdMap project that you have enjoyed and that you feel you've benefited from?
Thank you very much. I've been excited about bird atlasing and even the BirdMap. It have helped me to know different habitats and to reach them and to get all birds that are found in those habitats. And just take good time just in the nature to discover new birds that are found there. It also have helped me to keep my records, because now I don't have to take a notebook and start writing like the old way that I used to do before doing bird mapping. I can use my record to confirm how true I am with my species, and to just track them down and be excited about them. Atlasing have helped me to persuade my fellow peers and my fellow young Kenyan birders to discover more about atlasing. I've made so many people to join it, and they're atlasing with me together. We've been so excited about it, and even here I am still atlasing, and even a few minutes from here I'm going to start atlasing again. I've been very excited. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you, Colin. It's true, you've really encouraged other people your friends to get involved, and that's been a great part of it. Thank you. So that's one component that has been great about the young Kenyans and a wider community getting involved in birding and bird atlasing. But the other thing I think which has been exciting for us has been the whole concept of the data, the sort of heart of the reason why we're doing the bird atlasing. There is definitely the whole component of bringing people in, but then generating good quality data and making it accessible to people has been the other thing which we have really been excited about. And it's been great to have with us here currently David Clarence, who I'll ask to join me. And David has been, David's a data cruncher by profession and by passion as well, and has also become a birder since he's been for about 2 years, isn't it? 2-3 years. Yeah. And has come and volunteered with us here at the Roche at other times as well. And it's been great to have David capture a vision really of the data and I suppose it's the concept of having a growing database of bird records from which a story can be told about the birds. And I think our challenge has been is that the data has kind of been locked up in the database. And what has been exciting for us as the sort of management of the Bird Atlas project in Kenya is to have David come on board with a vision of unlocking that. So David, just share a little bit about your vision and your ideas about that.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. I think the base goal is to make the data more easily accessible, so you're rapidly generating hypotheses and rapidly testing them, right? And I think there's sort of two sets of target audiences we want to develop tools for. I think the first is researchers and academics who are based at universities or research institutions, and making data easily accessible for them so they're not spending 3 hours trying to get the data. They spend a maximum of 30 seconds, right? To get data for a specific area, for a specific time period, for a specific species really quickly. I think the second sort of group that we want to address has been a group that hasn't been sort of serviced a lot, or at least as much as researchers have. And this is the group of people who actually collect the data. So observers in the field like me, like Apollo, like everyone in the Bird Atlas, sort of who generate the data and very often have these deep contextual insights that maybe academics might not have it because academics are based in a different place, right? And so to address these two sets of audiences, we want to sort of develop two sets of tools, right? So the first is to develop a set of tools in languages that are used commonly across universities, but also in the data science world. So languages like R and Python. I think the goal there is to create libraries in them, both containing sort of extraction tools, so getting the data, but also like generating sort of insights really rapidly, right? So like simple graphs, simple sort of reporting rates and things like that. So to generate insights quickly, we've made headway on a library in R that is publicly accessible. It's on GitHub, is open source, and we would encourage contributions on it. We're developing a library now in Python, and that sort of will be more for web development, to make tools easily accessible for web development, because a lot of web development happens in Python now. And so we're making headway there. I think the second set of tools that we've started designing and started thinking about is more front-end tools, so websites and web tools for observers in the field. So let's say I'm an observer based in Mombasa, and I have been, like Doris is, and I've been atlasing that pentad every year, and I have 150 cards on that pentad. Now I do know that there are specific patterns I've sort of developed. Now I want to test if this actually bears out in the data. How can we enable somebody like Doris, somebody like Apollo to sort of observe their own pentad, but also generate hypotheses, and again might not be to the standard that academia requires, but generates a bunch of hypotheses that people like you and people like senior researchers can take and sort of develop those ideas further. And so those are the two main modes of getting to the objective, which is making data more accessible.
Yeah, and I think that's really exciting for us, because I think the potential there, both for, like you say, the average atlaser, to be able to access the data and then make something of it, it becomes more interesting for them.
Exactly.
Rather than just collecting data and sending it off and never seeing anything else from it. but to be able to actually do something with it themselves is excellent. And then also I think for data, for the data for your decision makers, like Kenya Wildlife Service in Kenya, authorities, other conservation bodies who might want to use the data and so on. So to have the opportunity to unlock that data, have access, a sort of gateway into the data in an easy way for someone like me who's not a Python sort of fundi in any way, I think that's amazing. So we're really excited about that for the Bird Atlas project, and it's not just for Kenya, it's going to be available for the whole Bird Atlas project across Africa. And I think as we move forwards, there's a handful of people like David and one or two others who we've had here in Kenya who are looking to try and maybe form a working group, a task force or something to work closely with Michael Brooks at UCT and others across the continent to be able to make the data accessible and usable for conservation and for science. Thank you, David. That's awesome. So that's us here in Kenya with the Kenya BirdMap project. We're very excited about what we've been able to achieve and about the potential for the future. Also, we're very keen to be able to share what we've learned with others across the continent and learn from them too as part of the wider African BirdMap project. We're also very thankful to UCT and particularly the Sabak 2 project for letting us be a part of it originally. Les Underhill and his vision for that, and Michael Brooks, and now the Fitzpatrick Institute. We're really excited about working with them and grateful for all they've done. Thank you.
Amanda Weldon. She atlases with her husband, Amanda and Dennis. They are keen atlases that have traveled widely over Southern Africa, not only South Africa, but Southern Africa, and have submitted numerous atlas cards. And when they're not traveling, they do an amazing job of keeping the Mossel Bay area in South Africa well monitored. So Amanda and Dennis, thank you for your contribution.
My name is Amanda. I was introduced to atlasing in 2009 in Gauteng when I met an experienced atlaser and birder named Sue, who took me under her wing and showed me how to go about birding with a purpose. We spent many hours out in the field counting birds, learning about distribution, behavior, habitat, migration patterns, etc. We covered large areas of Limpopo, Northwest, Gauteng, Mpumalanga Highveld, Kruger National Park and other areas, doing bird counts in pentads that had not been atlased before. Atlasing gave me an opportunity to make a contribution to the Sabak 2 project. Every outing became a learning experience, and as my birding skills improved, my bird life list grew. I've had many memorable moments atlasing and can't really pinpoint one highlight. Our 40-day birding trip through Namibia in 2019 was one of my best experiences of my life, with mega birds like Angola cave chat, Herrera chat, Cinderella waxbill and others, which added 28 new birds to my life list. I also completed 46 atlas cards. Some days I could hardly walk after crawling up places like the Zebra Mountains to see the cave chat for about 10 seconds and then slide down huge boulders, trying not to tumble down and smash my camera or binoculars. To me, getting stuck in knee-deep mud or falling over while trying to cross a stream is all part of the fun of atlasing. I also enjoy taking part in atlas bashes, when teams of atlasers target remote areas to record species to better understand how, for instance, climate change impacts bird populations. These days I try and find under-atlas areas where I can spend time looking for species to add to the Sabak database. I get a great feeling of achievement when I submit an out-of-range form which is accepted and a new bird is added to the list for the pentad. Atlasing has become a way of life for us, and we seldom go on holiday or a day trip without atlasing being part of our plans. We've met many dedicated atlasers over the years, and some have become very good friends. The dedication of the SABAP team to keep the project going for so many years is impressive, and I can only hope that the project is able to carry on with the help of the many contributors that volunteer their time and money.
So our next atlaser is Chris Meyer. Chris is relatively new to atlasing, but he's making his mark in Zambia, and he also atlas with his wife. So let's listen to Chris.
Warm greetings from Ndola, Zambia, and thank you for asking me to share my atlasing experience on this special occasion with so many other atlasers out there. Being able to go birding with my amazing wife Caddy, who is also very enthusiastic and supportive when we go out on our trips or even just at home, often reminds me to record the sighting on our BirdLasser app. And being able to atlas as a couple makes it a lot more fun. There are many highlights during the short while we have been atlasing, and each lifer is one of them. Building on our life list is a personal challenge, and there is much excitement when we find a new species to add to our list, or to see the return of a migrant to our garden. On a recent trip to a nursery outside Kitwe, we were lucky enough to find a lifer, the grey waxbill. There was much excitement, but no camera for photographic evidence, as is needed these days to confirm proof of a sighting. However, 2 weeks later, we had to return, and this time armed with a camera, and with the photographs to prove it, we left satisfied. A real highlight, however, is the annual return and visit to our garden over the past 4 years of a Palearctic migrant, the sedge warbler. Interesting to see and record the first and last time it visits the garden, and to note the regularity of its return date, always at the end of November and staying around until mid-April. We literally sit and wait for its return, and often wonder how it traveled and where it stopped off along the way. Atlasing is an enjoyable pastime, and I'm sure as time goes by could even become quite addictive. Going by our joy when I was sent a certificate on our first milestone of 25 full protocol cards. I was quite proud of the achievement, only to realize that some folk are already clocking in over 1,000 cards. We have a long way to go. Along with the personal challenges, achievements, and satisfaction we get from going through the records and photos after a trip or outing, there's the uploading and submission of the data. And hopefully that we are contributing to a bigger picture. The use of our data for research, filling in the gaps, so to speak, and the updating of species distribution maps, and hopefully finding something new one day. Most of our trips are based around Ndola and the Copper Belt in Zambia. However, occasionally we get out further, and the hope is soon to atlas and submit all our records from within Zambia and elsewhere in Africa, where we have the photos, including dates and time they were taken to back up the records. This was all before we were introduced to the world of atlasing. Thank you once again, and stay safe.
Okay, so back to the Kenya BirdMap project. So Sydney Shema is the coordinator of the Kenya BirdMap project, and he has a short presentation to us about the Kenya BirdMap project. Let's listen to Sydney.
Hello everyone, my name is Sydney Shema. I currently coordinate the Kenya BirdMap project, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the progress we've made so far and where we are at the moment. So to give you a quick background of the project, we began in 2013 as a follow-up to the first Atlas project that was done in Kenya. So this was completed in 1989 when the book A Bird Atlas of Kenya was published by Lewis and Pomeroy, and this was basically the standard reference for the distribution of birds across Kenya, and it has remained like that ever since. So many of the distribution maps that we have in our guidebooks and other resources for birds in Kenya, a lot of them draw information from this particular atlas. But that was 30 years ago, and of course a lot has changed. There's been a lot of habitat change and deforestation, growth in agriculture and urban expansion and all that, climate change. So a lot of birds distributions have also changed, and what we're doing is basically updating our knowledge of what's going on. So the Kenya BirdMap basically replicates the protocol that is used in South Africa by the Southern African Bird Atlas Project 2, or SABAP 2 in short. Some of you might be familiar with it. And basically it's based on the same pentad scale, which is, a pentad is a grid square, which is 5 minutes by 5 minutes, or 9 kilometers by 9 kilometers on the equator. And this is what we use to draw distribution maps. So the Kenya BirdMap is a partnership between several organizations, mainly National Museums of Kenya, Arocha Kenya, the Tropical Biology Association, the Bird Committee of Nature Kenya, and the website and the database is housed at the Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology, which is also the one that houses the SABAP 2 and is basically the overall custodian, I would say, of our data at the moment. So the coverage so far, we've done about 17% of the country covered with what we call full protocol cards. So these are basically bird lists where the observers have followed the protocol set by the project the way it should be. So that's what we call a full protocol card, and those are the lists that give us the most information in terms of the bird species that are in that particular pentad. When the observer does not observe the full protocol, we call it an ad hoc. So those can be just random records. They can even be a single record of a species. And as you can see, there are several ad hoc records spread across. All the gray squares you see are ad hoc records. So the full protocols have been submitted by 363 observers so far, or bird atlasers. And the best covered parts of the country are basically the central part of the country, which is the Central Highlands and the Central Rift Valley, as well as the coast, which is also quite well covered. And these are the places that have the most active birders and bird atlasers. And there are several important bird areas within these locations, and some of them have quite comprehensive coverage at the moment. There are also several pentads that have over 20 cards submitted to them, 20 full protocol cards, and at least 8 of them have over 100 full protocol cards. So that gives us a lot of information about what's going on with the birds in that area, and if they can continue to be atlased over time, it's a really good tool for monitoring. We have big gaps in the north and the east of the country, and these are basically the most remote and also most insecure parts of the country, because there's many of the tribes and communities in these areas and near the borders with Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Uganda. There's a lot of tribal conflict. So these areas, and many of them also have guns, they're well armed, so it makes these areas quite dangerous to visit. And as you can imagine, birders have not been keen to visit them. So that's why we have such big gaps in the north and east. So just to give you some examples of the type of changes we're seeing in the distributions of our species, using the data that we've collected so far, I'll show you a few birds that show some quite dramatic changes. Almost every species is showing some sort of change, but these are the ones that really stand out. So one is the house sparrow, and this is a species that was basically introduced. It's not endemic, or rather it's not indigenous to Kenya. It's not found in Kenya naturally, so it was introduced to the coast in the early 1900s, and it was basically confined mainly to the coast in 1989. But as you can see today, it has spread to almost the entire country, and this is all data from the Kenya BirdMap. So you can see how dramatic that range expansion has been for this bird. and this is a species that is mainly urban, so it's been thriving with the expansion and the growth of the human population. Another one is the house crow, which is also introduced from the Indian subcontinent. It's also called the Indian house crow, and this is also introduced to the coast, and that's where it was mainly confined to, and it's still mainly at the coast, but as you can see, it has really spread over a much wider area. It's gone all the way north to the Tana Delta and even further north to Lamu, which is not far from the Somali border, so maybe it might reach Somalia sometime soon. Or it might even be there, just that there are no atlasing in the southern part of Somalia. And it's also gone further inland to Taita, and along the main road towards Nairobi, it's now reached a center called Makindu. So this is a bit worrying because this is a species that is known to be detrimental to our native birds, and there's a program actually starting to control this species, and we're going to be using the bird atlas to monitor the population and see how effective the control measures put in place will be to reduce the numbers of this species and control it. The Maccoa duck, this is now on the opposite end of the spectrum, a species that has almost completely disappeared. As you can see, it was fairly widespread in central Kenya, not the most numerous of species, but it was quite widespread at least in central Kenya. And today there are only about 4 or 5 pentas where it has been recorded. So that's a huge decline, and it's quite a worry for the conservation of this species, at least in Kenya. The bearded vulture is an even more dramatic example, and it has virtually disappeared from Kenya completely. There's only one record actually on the Kenya BirdMap at present, near the Uganda border at a place called Mount Mtelo. But apart from that, all the other places where it used to be known, in 1989, it was even breeding somewhere in the Central Rift. Then it's no longer there. It seems to have disappeared, and it's suspected that a few from Mount Kilimanjaro might still enter Kenya sporadically, but we've not recorded them yet. So this is one that is really worrying. But it's basically just shows you the type of things we're getting to see with this bird atlas data, and we're now looking to start doing some really detailed analysis of this data and hopefully get some good insights on the status of our birds in Kenya. Thank you very much, and you can learn a lot more about the project on our website, and also feel free to send us an email if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, etc. Thank you.
Our next atlaser we're going to listen to is the Lammergeier. The Wongi is from Malawi, and she's the most active atlaser in Malawi. She's working really hard to create more atlases in Malawi, and she also tries to atlas new pentats. I've met Wongi before, and it's really nice to now listen to Wongi as to why she loves atlasing.
My name is Lammergeier. I atlas, my main region for atlasing is in Malawi, in Southern Africa. I was introduced to this I think when I was studying in South Africa, and I learned, I think one of the best moments that I had is when I learned coming out of the app, the BirdLasser app. I've really enjoyed it because it's helping me keep a life list, which I never really actually did, but now I get to have one, which is really great. I think one of my most memorable times atlasing was just recently when we were given an opportunity to go into a new park extension. So Lammergeier National Park in southern Malawi has had an extension area which is not well explored. So we got a chance to go into there, and really the amount of bird species that we were able to see there I think we recorded the Woolward's Batis for the first time in there, and another one, Vincent's Bunting, for the first time. So this was just recently, and it was really an exciting moment for me. Just getting to walk in the park, and I had the chance to use the Bird Atlas, the Bird Lasser app, I should say, and walk through, and I could actually see that I'm walking across the square and do the full protocol of that square, which was really, really exciting for me. I think I enjoy it, one, because it just gets me out and gets me in the natural environment, which I really enjoy. And I also enjoy it because I know I'm contributing to something that is really useful. Of late, I've really come to understand how important it is for us to make this data available for a lot of people to access, so that they can be able to do various research that informs the way that we do conservation and the way that we assist our biodiversity. Thank you.
Our next atlaser is Rodney Kieson. Rodney is a Cape Nature Ranger stationed at Roggeveen Nature Reserve. He has built up an impressive monitoring database for the reserve with over 50 full protocol cards submitted over the past 4 years.
I'm Rodney Kieson, work in base on Roggeveen Nature Reserve. I'm working 5 years on the reserve and 20 years entire for Cape Nature. Roggeveen Nature Reserve is located in the Western Cape province along the southwestern tip of Africa. The reserve is about 100 kilometers north of Cape Town. Roggeveen is about 950 hectares, have a variety of bird species and plants as their habitat. The reserve have also a seasonal pan and flow only in the winter. There are roughly 203 bird species found on the reserve. It is a mix of terrestrial, freshwater and marine species. There are 3 things that stands out for me when I do atlasing. Number 1, birdings help you to connect with nature. Birds are some of the best ambassadors from the natural world. Many of the species I found are migrants that came from far in the northern hemisphere. When they arrive here in the summer, it tells me a story about their journey down Africa. If you start bird watching, you start to pay closer attention to nature. Number 2, birding is good for your health. Spending time and energy finding and observing birds is great for your physical, mental, and emotional health. You might even end up hiking to somewhat remote areas for bird watching. By becoming a bird watcher, you are stimulating your brain in a healthy way. Number 3, birding is a great way to make friends. Bird watchers are generally a social group. They love to talk about birds, about their birding experience, and about the places they visit. Atlasing at a minimum has an educational and recreational value for me. It provides emotional on the current distribution of birds and may be used by bird watchers to assess the importance of their own observation records, learn more about species, or to plan trips. I like to contribute to the South African Bird Atlas project as the data collected is used by scientists and conservation planners to better conserve our unique bird species. It feels good being part of the biggest citizen science project. Everyone in their own personal capacity can contribute to a greater cause. As a field ranger, it is part of my duties to collect field data for Roggeveen Nature Reserve. For more information about our reserves, you can visit our website www.capenature.co.za.
So our next atlaser is from Zimbabwe. Jean Paul submitted nearly 300 cards already, and he's making a really valuable contribution to atlasing in Zimbabwe. So let's listen to what Jean-Paul had to say.
I atlas to contribute to citizen science and because I love birding. I believe atlasing is a great way to contribute data which can be used in many scientific applications. I atlas around Zimbabwe, and as a professional safari guide, I am privileged to work and travel to many of the spectacular regions in the country. I enjoy atlasing because it encourages constant exploration and improvement of birding skills. I'm always amazed by the birds I find in suburban Harare, and if I wasn't atlasing, I may never have explored as extensively in my home Pentad. Atlasing and birding trips go hand in hand for me, thus I've had many memorable experiences. Some recent ones that come to mind are finding red pharaohlope and bar-tailed godwit in Wangi National Park earlier this year. Both species are Zimbabwean rarities. I also really enjoy engaging with other birders and encouraging atlasing, especially in the guiding community. We need as many people atlasing as possible.
So our next speaker don't need any introduction. He's Henk Nel from BirdLasser, the app that we all use right through Africa to collect data. And Henk made a few videos that I've put together about how to lock your data on BirdLasser.
To download the BirdLasser app, go to your mobile device. If it's an Android-based device, go to the Play Store. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad, for the iPad it has to be one that caters for a SIM card. You don't necessarily have to have a SIM card in there. Go to the App Store. I'm using an iPhone, so I'm going to the App Store. Going to go to search, enter BirdLasser, select BirdLasser, and I'm presented with the BirdLasser app. To the right of the icon, you'll note a little cloud with the downloads, because I've downloaded before. If it's the first time you're going to download, it'll say get. That indicates it's a free app. So let's download the app. Okay, and you're ready to use it. Once BirdLasser has been downloaded, you'll note the BirdLasser icon on your home screen. So let's click on that to open it. First time you open it, you are presented with three options: register, login, or reset password. Because it's the first time I'm going to use BirdLasser, you need to register. Once you've registered, you want to go back into the app, or you want to log on to our website, use those same credentials. But let's start off with registration. Enter your email address. My email address is birder@birdlasser.com, and you can choose any password. It's quite important to note here that don't use the password you use for your email account. There's no need to do that. Obviously it is possible. Rather make up a new password. I'm quickly going to make up a password, and now I'm ready to register my new account. Note the verification email at the bottom. It points to the email address that a verification email will be sent to. Make sure it's correct. If it's not correct, fix the error in your email address. Otherwise, just say yes, it is correct, and continue. There we go. The app opens up for the first time. It's noting that preparing for species, which means it's checking that you've got the latest database of species on your phone. In the background, BirdLasser would have sent you an email verification to that email address you used. So go to your inbox, check if you see the email from BirdLasser. If not in your inbox, make sure you check your junk mail folder as well. So I've checked my folder and I see I've received a mail. Inside that mail is a link that says click on this link to verify your account, and that I have done now. Back to the app, have a look. Everything in BirdLasso is about creating a trip card and logging your sightings inside that trip card. The trip card can be anything that makes sense to you. It could be something like my home and everything around where you live today, and you see whatever you observe there, you add to that list. Or maybe you go on holiday and you say our beach house, July 2019, and enter all the sightings you see for that trip in that trip card. Often people like to have a trip card for a specific area like Kruger National Park, and every time they visit Kruger National Park they enter their sightings in that trip card. The trip card can never be closed down, so you can always go back and add more species to that trip card. Other people prefer having a trip card per calendar year, and whatever they see in that year they list in that trip card. In my example, I'm just going to create something. I'm going to call it my first card. You'll note that there are a few protocol modes below. If you're not familiar with any of the protocols, it's not a problem. Just leave those unticked. I'm going to say done. And you may also get these notifications from your app asking you to allow BirdLasso to use your location. It's obviously necessary for us to assign a latitude and longitudinal coordinates to your observations. We need to have access to your location. So I'm going to say allow while using the app. Also ask if we can use your microphone, because you can call out the bird names in the microphone instead of using your keyboard. So I would like that. Here we are. I'm inside my first trip card. Note at the top it says my first card. I can go back and to the list of trip cards. Says my first trip card. It says I've got 0 species from the 24th of August. Now I'm ready to log my first record. But I recommend before doing that to first set up your configuration in the app to suit your style of birding. To configure the app, go to Settings. In Android, that's accessed on the top left-hand corner. There's 3 horizontal bars. Tap on that to see all the menu options. Here on iPhone, it's right at the bottom of your screen. To the far right, it says Settings. When I go into settings, I can see who I am. My personal information is there, birder@birdlasso.com. But the part we are going to focus on is the section called Region, Taxon and Display Language. I'm currently based in Southern Africa, so I set my region to Southern Africa. You can set it to any of the other regions in the world. What it effectively does, it presents you with the list of species just for that region. So it's easy to search for a species and to select it when you saw it. No need to get all 10,500 species of the world presented to you to create a record. So I'm happy with Southern Africa. The next one is the taxonomy I follow. Here in Southern Africa, we follow IOC. Elsewhere in the world, you may follow Howden Moore or Clements. You can choose either. Then lastly, and most importantly, is your language setup. This is the language a species is presented on your screen. I have my primary language set to English IOC, so whatever the IOC decides the species name should be in English is what I will be presented up in the app. I must, however, admit I prefer using English South Africa. It makes sure that I see the names that we are familiar with in South Africa. My secondary language, I'm going to set to Afrikaans, and the third one to Scientific IOC. The other settings are there for you to experiment with, improve GPS. Just make sure your phone uses a more intense GPS receiver. Atlas mode, there's an outdoor mode. You can change the look and feel of the app. If you are an Atlaser, there's a section on that. For the general birder, do not worry about that. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. Would like to bring your attention to the section under About. Right at the bottom is the BirdLasso version. quite important if you make contact with us regarding any queries is to quote that BirdLasso version so we know which version you're on. Other useful stuff, you can see our Facebook and our Twitter links. And most importantly, rate BirdLasso. It'll take you back to the Play Store or the App Store where you can rate the app. So please give us a piece of your mind. Okay, once I'm done with settings, I go back to trips. There's my first trip card. So I'm ready to log my first observation in my trip card called my first card. I can see a hadida outside. So let's log a hadida. Click log and type in hadida. Before I do, just note the names of each of these species. This is the species list for Southern Africa. It's indicated by this little drop-down arrow at the top left-hand corner. And each species shows its 3 different names. First, the English South Africa, as I set it up in settings. Then there's the Afrikaans name, and next to it is the scientific IOC name. Let's type in hadida, and you note that I didn't even have to complete it. Gets its hadida, and I log it. Now also note that that hadida is in a yellowish color. The yellowish is an indication that it's the first time you've logged this species in BirdLasso, i.e. it's a lifer. Let's also log the Cape Sparrow calling there. A quick trick, instead of typing out Cape space Sparrow, I'm just going to type the first 2 letters of every word, CA space SP. So I get Cape Sparrow there, 4th from the top. Because I've selected Afrikaans as a language, I can also type in Mossie, which is the Afrikaans for sparrow, M-O-S-S. And I get all the sparrows. There's Cape Sparrow at the top. I could also have gone with Melanurus, which is the scientific name. Just go Mela. And I see Melanurus, there you go, Cape Sparrow, 2nd from the top. So as you've noted, depending on your language settings, you can search across those to quickly get to the species you're looking for. We often tell people you should not need to type more than 5 characters to get to any of the species you want to. To make it even easier, you can, if you hear, I'm just going to log my Cape Sparrow, it's a lifer. If I hear Greater Honey Guide, I hear it calling Victor, Victor. I can even type in Victor to get the Greater Honey Guide. I can also, if the name has any numeric connotation, use that, like a double-banded sandgrass. So I can go to 2, there we go, double-banded sandgrass, or 3 for 3-banded plover. I can even use the old name. I'm hearing an African olive pigeon calling, but I opt to go for Ramarin. I know it's an African olive pigeon, doesn't show Ramarin, but at least it's there, and I can quickly type it in. So trying to make it really easy to get to the species you want. So let's log an African olive pigeon. Okay, just a little bit more about the records in a list. We've got 3 lifers in this list. I can go and tap on either one of these to add more information about it. So there's the Cape Sparrow. I'm going to tap on it. We've now opened the Cape Sparrow species record. You can see the location, the date. What's nice is everything in here is editable. In other words, you can change the species. If you've incorrectly logged something, you can go in here and change it by just tapping on the species name and reselecting what you wanted. You can even change the location. Or remember, this species is logged where you are right now. But let's say you wanted to update something that you saw previously, tapping on the location, knowing where you saw it. If you saw it over there in the top left-hand corner, I press my finger down. It asks me, do you want to move the pin there? I say, yes, please. And it updates the coordinates. Just remember to click done when you're done. You also did not see it today, so you type in date and you can change it to a date in the past, and it's done. It's now moved to the 11th of July. You've noted that you've seen it. By default, every record is logged as seen. You can change and say, no, I heard it. Or I can say, you know what, it wasn't not specified. I know exactly how many I saw 5 of them. There you go, exactly 5. A lot of other stuff that you can get familiar with, like don't count towards your life list if it's a species like a peacock that you want on the list, but you know it's not a countable species in South Africa. She said, don't count towards my life list. Lots of other stuff under advanced properties. Have a look and see if there's anything that you'd like to keep track of. This is all about you and what you feel is important. Okay, and I go all the way back and have a look. So we've got those 3 species in our first trip card. Some other features in BirdLasser is it keeps your life list. So if I go to the life list option right at the bottom, I'll see my life list now has 3 species in it. The all means it's all regions in the world. It's like your global list. Important to note, at the top you can filter instead of all time to a specific calendar year. You can also add other locations. So you can be very specific to the life list you want to keep. As an example, you've got certain continents, areas. I'm in Gauteng, so I can say, give me my life list for Gauteng. Seeing as I'm a Gauteng and I log these species here, it will give me my Gauteng life list as 3 as well. Going into the list, you can see what my 3 species are for my Gauteng life list. So imagine you've got one with a couple hundred in there for the Southern African region. You probably want to look at how you get to each of the major milestones, like your 500, 600, 700. So what's nice is you can see which species you achieved at which milestone. It will also keep every record you have. So if you've logged 1,000 haridas, all of them will be. You can see exactly where you saw each. By tapping on the record, it will show you which trip card you've logged it. You can look on a map. I've only got 1 harida, but you could have seen how you've logged it all across the world, and it'll have little pins everywhere. Nice way of seeing what you've done. When you're in your life list, a few other things is you can export it and sort it. So you can export your life list in a spreadsheet. In this case, my one for Gauteng. The other thing that's really cool about BirdLasser is how it makes every birder a citizen scientist or social conservationist. What we try and aim with that is make the app as simple as possible to use, log what you see, and share it with the conservation and research authorities. We have a feature in the app called Causes. So I'm going to tap on Causes. It'll first of all highlight cause species, so you'll know which species you've logged are linked to which causes. And I'm going to sign up for a couple of these causes. The first one is threatened and other important species. I'm going to tap on that. The owner of this cause is BirdLife South Africa. They want to know what's happening and where are our threatened and otherwise important species. So by saying, you know what, I'll opt into this one. I'm going to support this cause. It's a mandatory disclaimer. I'm going to agree to it. And now it means that these people at BirdLife can extract the data for these specific species from my account. So one of the important species is our national bird. So I'm going to go back to my list and I'm going to log a blue crane. There's the blue crane. Note the little dot to it. On Android, it'll have a little, to the right of it, a BirdLasser icon with a letter C inside indicates it's a core species. So when I log a blue crane, it's also a lifer, note the little black dot. And it's a reminder that I should probably add a few more details about this specific sighting. So this is a case where I'll go into the blue crane. Very important also how many species, how many of the species I've seen. 50, maybe not exactly. I was going too fast on the N2 passing them. So I'm estimating 50. And you know what? They weren't in the road where I was birding from. They were actually on the other side on a farm. So I'm just moving the pin there to be very exact of where I saw it. The coordinates will now update and BirdLife will get those additional details about my observation. So that's typically the requirement for all cause-related species. Please make sure you add additional information so that these people using the data have all the information they need. Thereby, you playing your part as a social conservationist.
So over to Adam. Adam is the founder of A Birding Life. He's a passionate birder and atlaser, and he contributes absolutely fantastic data to the Sapphire Coast area in the southern coast of KwaZulu-Natal.
Hi everyone, my name is Adam. I'm an atlaser in KwaZulu-Natal. I do most of my atlasing around the Amanzimtoti area. I just want to do a short video just to speak about what is it about atlasing that I really enjoy. I think a couple of years ago, Henk Nel, we were out birding and he spoke about atlasing. He spoke about how atlasing will grow a person as a birder. And I can honestly say over the last couple of years, as I've started atlasing, I've grown as a birder in ways that I would have never ever have imagined. And with the BirdLasser app, it's easier than ever to get on an atlas. And I think really for birders, there's really no excuse to not be atlasing. It's really easy to do and it's a lot of fun. So why do I enjoy atlasing? I think first and foremost, it's like I said, it's grown me as a birder. When I used to go out and bird, there would be birds that I didn't know what they were, and I just kind of like ignore the bird, move on to the next bird. But as an atlaser, it's actually forced me to actually spend the time to identify every single bird that I see and hear on the field. And as I've had to do that there, it's grown me as a birder. I've been able to find more birds where I have a list of X amount. When I go and atlas a pentat now, I find at the end of that time of atlasing that I've seen a whole lot more birds than I would have ever seen before. So firstly, it's grown me as a birder. I've improved identification, I've improved in terms of calls, in all different areas I've grown. The second thing I love about atlasing is as I explore pentats and try and do full cards, it's allowed me to find places that I never ever thought I would have found. I found little wetlands, I found grasslands, and we've been able to find some amazing birds just by going out and atlasing. We've been able to find things like a little spot close to us where we regularly in summer see corncrake. There's a whole lot of these really cool spots, and I would have never found these spots if it wasn't for actually being an atlaser. And then thirdly, what I really love about atlasing is that every time I'm out birding, using BirdLasser, using the app as simple as it is, and using the protocols that are in place for atlasing, every time I do that, the thing that excites me is I know that I'm playing a small part in conservation. So those three things are the reason that I believe everyone should be atlasing. I think birding is great, but atlasing is a lot better. And I want to encourage everyone who's listening to this to start atlasing, learn how to do the protocols, get out there and start to do it and make a significant contribution to conservation. Thanks everybody.
So our last atlaser to speak to us today is Tony Hart from Namibia. She has been instrumental in updating our understanding of species ranges in Namibia. She's a tour guide in Namibia, and she's making a really valuable contribution to atlasing there. So let's listen to Tony.
I have been atlasing since 2015. Back then we were doing it manually, so now we do it a little bit different with the app, and it makes it so much more easier. There's also a fun aspect to atlasing with the app, with your lists and your challenges. One of the reasons why I have contributed towards atlasing is, or the most important thing that I can remember is I found a white-fronted bee-eater in Hoaneb Delta, 10 kilometers from the Atlantic coast. And ever since then, I've been logging a lot more that has to do with the fact that I am one of the lucky ones that has a day job where I travel the country. I get to go to really remote areas within the country, and just finding that bee eater in the middle of nowhere where it's not supposed to be, that made me realize the importance of citizen science and actually logging the birds and where we find them. So I would say the three most important logs or birds that I've found and I've logged would have been last year. I was very lucky and fortunate to be shown a Pell's fishing owl up outside Katima. That was last year, 2019. And then I have the highlight of my 2019, which would have been the 13th of December. I managed to find the Ross's Torrico outside Rundu, and this year would have been my Bathawk, which if you look at distribution maps, you will see that they don't occur here.
Well, I think you would all agree that this was really fantastic to listen a little bit about the Kenya BirdMap project and about BirdPasser, and to especially listen to hear from all the atlases why they are so passionate about atlasing, and I hope that the contributions will motivate those of you listening and who have not contributed to the project to also do so. Thank you to everybody that submitted their videos and for the presentations, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the bird fair. Thank you.
Thank you to Adam Stratif and Sanjay Rose who put together that presentation. Atlasing is such an easy way to make a contribution towards monitoring and ultimately the conservation of birds. I do encourage all of you African birders to get involved, especially if there is sparse data currently in your country. We can all contribute to this project by just doing what we love. Feeders 2 and 3 have no further content for the day. However, at the main feeder, there is now a lecture by Professor Anusia Chinsami-Turan, a very globally renowned paleontologist and also the honorary president of BirdLife South Africa. She will be presenting on the evolution of birds. This is something quite different to most bird fairs, and I think that birders will really enjoy learning about the origins of modern birds and how flight and feathers came to be. After that lecture, at 5 p.m. South African time, Peter Harrison, MBE, the David Attenborough of the Sleeves, will present our keynote conservation lecture on albatross. This is the only paid event for the entire fair, and you will need to pay a 50 Rand admittance. If you've not done so yet, please go to eventapp.co.za/birdlife. That's eventapp.co.za/birdlife and select the paid option. If you do not pay the admittance, you will unfortunately not be able to access this talk. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. The proceeds from this talk are going towards supporting seabird conservation in South Africa, which gives you some extra motivation. After Peter's talk, we will wind down with the biggest bird quiz in Africa, presented by myself and Mike Buckham. Be prepared to learn a lot about African birds in the process. We'll see you there.